The cold water hit my face like 1,000 needles, shocking me awake before dawn. I gasped, choking and sputtering as I fell off the narrow cot that served as my bed. "Wake up, Wolfless," Victoria's voice dripped with venom as she stood over me, empty bucket dangling from her perfectly manicured hand. "Alpha Marcus wants the house spotless before the king arrives. You know, actual important people with actual wolves." I wiped the freezing water from my eyes, my thin nightgown now soaked and clinging to my shivering body. My sister, though I was starting to doubt we shared any blood at all, looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Her golden hair cascaded in perfect waves over her shoulders, and her emerald eyes sparkled with cruelty. "I was going to wake up in 10 minutes, I said quietly, knowing it wouldn't matter. 10 minutes. She laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut. "The White Lycan King doesn't wait for broken, wolfless mistakes. Unlike you, I actually have a chance of being chosen as his mate. Can you imagine? Me as Queen of the Northern Territories." She leaned down, her voice dropping to a whisper. "While you'll still be here, scrubbing toilets and sleeping in the basement like the reject you are." Something inside my chest twisted painfully. It wasn't the first time Victoria had reminded me of my place. It wouldn't be the last. But today, with the most powerful shifter in North America arriving at our pack, the weight of being wolfless pressed down on me harder than ever. I was 23 years old and had never shifted. Never felt the call of the moon. Never experienced the connection that every other werewolf described with reverence and joy. I was an anomaly. A disappointment. A constant reminder that sometimes the wolf bloodline just stopped. "Get dressed and get to work," Victoria commanded, tossing the bucket at my feet. It clattered loudly in the small basement room. "And Maya? Try not to embarrass us today. When the king is here, stay out of sight. The last thing we need is for him to see what pathetic specimens our pack produces." She turned on her designer heels and climbed the stairs, slamming the door behind her. The lock clicked into place from the outside. "They always locked it. For my own safety," Alpha Marcus claimed. But I knew the truth. They locked it to remind me that I was a prisoner in the only home I'd ever known. I stood there in my soaked nightgown, water pooling at my feet, and let myself feel it for just a moment. The crushing loneliness. The desperate wish that I could be someone else, somewhere else. The tiny, fragile hope that maybe I wasn't broken, that maybe there was an explanation for why my wolf had never emerged. But hope was dangerous. Hope led to disappointment, and I'd had enough of that for one lifetime. I peeled off the wet nightgown and reached for the only other outfit I owned. A faded gray dress that had probably been donated to the pack by some charitable human organization. It hung loose on my small frame, shapeless and worn. Perfect for someone who was supposed to be invisible. As I dressed, I caught my reflection in the small, cracked mirror hung on the stone wall. Mousy brown hair that refused to hold any style. Gray eyes that seemed too big for my thin face. Pale skin that never saw enough sunlight from living in this basement. I looked exactly like what I was. A girl who didn't belong anywhere. My hands trembled as I pulled my hair back into a simple braid. Not from the cold, though the basement was always freezing. Not from exhaustion, though I rarely slept more than a few hours. No, I was trembling because somewhere deep inside my chest something felt different today. Something felt alive. I pressed my palm against my sternum, trying to understand the strange flutter beneath my ribs. It felt like a heartbeat that wasn't quite my own. Like a whisper in a language I'd forgotten. Like a door inside me was trying to open after being locked for 23 years. "You're being ridiculous," I muttered to myself, dropping my hand. "There's nothing there. There's never been anything there." But as I climbed the stairs and unlocked the door from the inside, they taught me how to pick the simple lock years ago. Another small humiliation. That strange feeling grew stronger. It pulsed in time with my heartbeat, insistent and urgent. The main house was already bustling with activity. Pack members rushed back and forth, carrying decorations and preparing food. The air crackled with excitement and nervous energy. The White Lycan King hadn't visited Silver Creek Pack in over a decade, and his presence meant opportunity for some and terror for others. I kept my head down and made my way to the kitchen, where mountains of dishes from last night's pre-celebration feast waited for me. Luna Catherine, Alpha Marcus's mate and Victoria's mother in all but blood, stood by the counter directing several Omega wolves. "Hiya," she said, her voice cold and dismissive. "Start with the dishes, then scrub the floors in the main hall." And stay in the kitchen when the king arrives. We can't have him seeing. She waved her hand vaguely in my direction as if I was something distasteful she couldn't quite name. Yes, Luna Catherine, I replied automatically. She swept out of the kitchen without another word, leaving me alone with the mountain of dirty dishes and my own dark thoughts. I filled the sink with hot water and soap, letting the routine motions calm my racing mind. But that feeling in my chest wouldn't go away. It grew stronger with each passing hour, until I could barely concentrate on the task in front of me. My skin felt too tight. My senses felt sharper. I could hear conversations from rooms away, smell the individual ingredients in the food being prepared, feel the vibrations of footsteps through the floor. Get it together, I whispered to myself, scrubbing a plate so hard I was surprised it didn't break. You're just anxious. That's all. But it wasn't anxiety. Deep down, in a place I'd learned to ignore, I knew something was awakening. Something that had been sleeping inside me for my entire life. Around noon, a commotion erupted from the front of the house. The sound of engines, car doors slamming, and then a shift in the air itself. A pressure that made everyone in the house go silent and still. He was here. The White Lycan King had arrived. My hands froze in the dishwater. That feeling in my chest exploded into something I couldn't name, couldn't understand, couldn't fight. It pulled at me like an invisible thread, urging me toward the front door, toward whoever had just arrived. No, I breathed, gripping the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles went white. No, no, no. But my body wasn't listening to me anymore. My feet moved of their own accord, carrying me out of the kitchen and toward the front hall. I could hear Luna Catherine greeting someone in her most formal voice. Could hear Victoria's flirtatious laugh. Could hear Alpha Marcus's booming welcome. And then I heard it. A voice that made everything inside me go quiet and loud at the same time. Thank you for your hospitality, Alpha Marcus. Deep, smooth, with an edge of something deadly underneath. I won't waste your time. I'm here because my wolf has been restless for weeks, pulling me in this direction. My mate is in this territory. My mate. The words echoed in my head like thunder. I pressed myself against the wall just outside the main hall, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. Of course, Your Majesty, Alpha Marcus said, his voice oozing with false humility. We are honored that your mate might be among our pack. My daughter Victoria is unmated and she's one of our strongest. I'll know her when I see her, the king interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. The bond doesn't lie. I should have run back to the kitchen. Should have hidden in my basement room. Should have done anything except what I did next. But that pull in my chest was unbearable now, and before I could stop myself I stepped into the doorway of the main hall. And my entire world shattered. He stood in the center of the room, surrounded by our pack's leadership, and he was the most terrifying and beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Tall, impossibly tall, with platinum blonde hair that caught the light like starlight. His ice blue eyes swept across the room with the cold assessment of a predator, and when they landed on me everything stopped. The air. My heart. Time itself. His eyes widened and I watched his entire body go rigid. The power radiating from him intensified until I could barely breathe under the weight of it. Around us, pack members took involuntary steps backward, responding to their king's sudden surge of dominance. You, he breathed, and that single word carried a weight that pressed down on my shoulders. Victoria's head snapped toward me, her face contorting with rage and disbelief. Luna Catherine gasped. Alpha Marcus looked like someone had just punched him in the stomach. But I couldn't look away from the White Lycan King. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. Because that feeling in my chest had exploded into something that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. Mate. The word whispered through my mind in a voice that wasn't quite my own. A voice I'd never heard before but somehow recognized. My mate. The king took a step toward me, his expression unreadable. What's your name? Amaya, I managed to whisper. Waya Bennett. Waya, he repeated, and the way he said it made something inside me tremble. He took another step closer, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air. How old are you? 23. And you're Wolf. His voice had gone very quiet, very dangerous. When did you first shift? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Around us I could feel the pack holding their breath, waiting for my answer. Waiting for the confirmation of what they all already knew. I I don't have a wolf, I said, and the words tasted like ash. I'm wolfless. For a long moment the king just stared at me. Something flickered in those ice-blue eyes. Surprise, confusion, and then something that looked almost like disappointment. Impossible, he murmured. The mate bond doesn't form with humans. You must be. He stopped, his jaw clenching. There must be an explanation. Your Majesty, Victoria stepped forward, her voice sickly sweet with false concern. Maya has always been different. Broken really. I'm sure there's been some mistake. Perhaps your wolf was drawn to our territory for another reason? I'd be honored to. Be silent, the king commanded, not even looking at her. His eyes remained locked on mine, searching for something I didn't understand. I don't make mistakes about mate bonds. But I could see the doubt creeping into his expression. Could see him pulling away emotionally even as he stood only a few feet from me. A wolfless mate was unheard of. Impossible. An insult to someone of his power and status. I'm sorry, I whispered, though I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. For being broken? For disappointing him? For existing? His expression hardened into something cold and distant. No, he said finally. I'm sorry. There must be some interference, some magic at play. You can't be my mate. Each word was a knife to my chest. I'd spent my whole life being rejected, being told I wasn't good enough, wasn't strong enough, wasn't worthy. But this, having my destined mate look at me with such clear rejection, was a pain unlike anything I'd ever experienced. I understand, I forced out, taking a step backward. That pull in my chest was screaming now, begging me not to leave, but I couldn't stand here and watch him dismiss me in front of the entire pack. I'd endured enough humiliation for one lifetime. Maya, wait, he started, but I was already turning away, already fleeing toward the only sanctuary I had left. The basement door slammed behind me and I collapsed on the stairs, finally allowing the tears to fall. Above me, I could hear Victoria's triumphant laughter, hear Alpha Marcus trying to salvage the situation, hear Luna Catherine suggesting other potential mates for the king to consider. And that feeling in my chest, that awakening, that door trying to open, slammed shut so hard it felt like something inside me died. I pressed my hands over my face and sobbed, alone in the darkness, convinced that this was my fate. To always be the girl who wasn't enough. To always be the mistake nobody wanted. But deep inside, buried beneath the pain and humiliation, something ancient stirred. Something that had been sleeping for 23 years, bound by magic and lies, waiting for this exact moment to begin its awakening. Something that would prove everyone wrong. Thank you for joining us. Comment below where you're watching from and how the weather is there today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a story. I stayed in the basement for 3 hours, curled up on my cot with my knees pulled to my chest. The tears had eventually stopped, leaving behind a hollow ache that seemed to settle into my bones. Above me, I could hear the muffled sounds of the pack entertaining their royal guest. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. Victoria's voice rang out more than anyone else's, loud and flirtatious. I imagined her hanging on the king's arm, offering herself as a replacement for his defective mate. The thought made my stomach turn. A soft knock on the basement door made me sit up, wiping my face quickly. No one ever knocked. They either barged in or ignored my existence entirely. Maya. The voice was unfamiliar, male but gentler than I expected. May I come down? I didn't answer, but the door opened anyway. Heavy footsteps descended the stairs, and a man appeared who I'd never seen before. He was tall, though not as tall as the king, with dark brown hair and kind hazel eyes. He wore the formal attire of someone important, and the scent of power rolled off him. A beta if I had to guess. I'm Thomas Cross, he said, stopping at the bottom of the stairs. The king's beta and advisor. His eyes swept across my small room, taking in the cracked mirror, the thin cot, the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. His jaw tightened. This is where you live. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my wrinkled dress. Yes. Is there something you need? Thomas studied me for a long moment, and I saw something like pity flash across his face before he controlled it. The king wishes to speak with you. Privately. My heart jumped into my throat. I don't think that's a good idea. Neither do I, frankly, Thomas admitted, surprising me with his honesty. But Nathaniel, King Nathaniel, he's not himself. The mate bond is affecting him more than he wants to admit, and he needs answers. We both do. He paused. You feel it too, don't you? The pull. I wanted to lie. Wanted to deny it and send him away. But what was the point? Yes, I whispered. But it doesn't matter. I'm wolfless. I can't be anyone's mate, especially not a Lycan King's. That's what we need to understand. Thomas took a step closer, his voice dropping. Maya, in all of recorded history, the mate bond has never formed between a shifter and a human. If you were truly human, truly without any wolf, the bond couldn't exist. Which means something else is going on. Hope fluttered dangerously in my chest. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe you're not as wolfless as you think. Maybe something is blocking your wolf, hiding it. He held out his hand. Come, talk to the king. If nothing else, you both deserve to understand what's happening. I stared at his outstretched hand, torn between the desperate need to understand and the fear of more rejection. Finally, I placed my hand in his. His grip was warm and steady, anchoring me as we climbed the stairs. The main house had quieted down. Thomas led me through the halls, and I realized most of the pack must have been dismissed. We walked toward Alpha Marcus's office, where I could hear voices. The king's deep rumble and Marcus's nervous responses. Thomas knocked once and pushed the door open without waiting for permission. The office was spacious, lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large oak desk. Alpha Marcus stood behind it, looking uncomfortable. Luna Catherine sat in one of the chairs, her expression cold and disapproving. Victoria leaned against the window, her arms crossed and her face twisted with barely contained rage. And there, standing in the center of the room like a force of nature, was King Nathaniel Cross. He turned the moment we entered, and those ice-blue eyes locked onto me with an intensity that made my breath catch. The mate bond flared between us, so strong now that I could almost see it, a golden thread connecting us, pulling taut. Everyone out, Nathaniel commanded, his voice leaving no room for argument. Except Maya. Your Majesty, I really think, Alpha Marcus started. I wasn't asking. The king's power flooded the room, making everyone flinch except me. I felt it wash over me like a wave, but instead of drowning me, it felt almost familiar. Comforting even. Victoria looked like she wanted to argue, but Luna Catherine grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. Come, darling. Let the king handle this situation. Thomas squeezed my shoulder once before following them out. I'll be right outside if you need anything, he said quietly. Then the door clicked shut and I was alone with my mate who didn't want me. For a long moment neither of us spoke. Nathaniel studied me with an expression I couldn't read, while I tried to figure out where to look that wasn't directly at him. The silence stretched between us, thick with tension and unspoken questions. Sit, he finally said, gesturing to one of the chairs. I sat, perching on the edge like I might need to run at any moment. Nathaniel moved to stand in front of me, then seemed to think better of it and leaned against the desk instead, maintaining some distance between us. I need to understand this, he said, and I heard the frustration in his voice. I need to understand you. Tell me about yourself. Your family. Your history. I twisted my hands in my lap. There's not much to tell. My parents died in a car accident when I was 3. Alpha Marcus took me and Victoria in, raised us as pack members. I've lived here my whole life. And your wolf? You've never shifted, never felt any sign of one. Never, I confirmed, the familiar shame washing over me. They've tested me, brought in healers, even took me to a witch once. Everyone came to the same conclusion. I just don't have a wolf. It happens sometimes. It doesn't happen, Nathaniel corrected sharply. Not like this. Someone is born without a wolf, they're human. Fully human. They don't have shifter DNA at all. But you, he stopped, running a hand through his platinum hair in frustration. You trigger my mate bond. My wolf recognizes you as ours. That's impossible if you're human. Maybe your wolf is wrong, I said quietly, even though the words hurt to say. His eyes snapped to mine and the intensity in them made me shrink back in my chair. My wolf is never wrong. Not about this. Which means someone has lied to you or hidden something from you or... He stopped again, his expression darkening. Or done something to you. What do you mean? Nathaniel pushed off from the desk and began pacing, his movements predatory and restless. There are ways to suppress a wolf. Dark magic, curses, certain potions. If administered young enough, before the first shift, They can keep a wolf dormant indefinitely. The person would appear human, would feel human, but their wolf would be there, sleeping, trapped. My mind reeled. That's not possible. Why would anyone do that to me? I'm nobody. I'm just nobody. He stopped pacing and faced me fully. Maya, look at yourself through my eyes for a moment. You're living in a basement, treated like a servant, isolated and abused by the very pack that's supposed to protect you. Your sister clearly hates you. The Alpha and Luna act like you're an embarrassment. Don't you think that's strange? Don't you wonder why? I had wondered. Every day of my life I'd wondered. But I'd always assumed it was because I was broken, because I'd failed to shift, because I was a disappointment they were stuck with out of obligation. What are you suggesting? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nathaniel crouched down in front of my chair, bringing himself to eye level with me. This close, I could see flecks of silver in his blue eyes, could smell his scent, snow and pine, and something wild that made my heart race. I'm suggesting that someone wanted you weak, wanted you powerless, and I'm going to find out who and why. His hand reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. When I didn't move, his fingers gently tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his gaze. You're my mate, Maya. I don't understand it yet, and I'm sure as hell not happy about the circumstances, but the bond doesn't lie. And if someone has hurt you, trapped you, kept you from your true nature, his eyes flashed with something dangerous. They'll answer to me. The words should have comforted me, should have made me feel protected. But all I could focus on was what he'd said before. I'm sure as hell not happy about the circumstances. I pulled away from his touch, standing up so quickly the chair scraped against the floor. You don't have to do this. You don't have to pretend you want a wolfless mate just because of some bond you don't even understand. I release you from it. I reject. Don't. The single word cracked like a whip, and suddenly Nathaniel was standing too, towering over me with an expression of pure fury. Don't you dare reject this bond. Don't you dare. Why not? I shot back, surprising myself with the anger in my voice. You already rejected me upstairs. I saw it in your eyes. The disappointment. The doubt. I've spent my whole life being rejected, being told I'm not good enough. I won't spend the rest of it watching my own mate wish he'd gotten someone else. Something in his expression cracked, and for just a moment, I saw past the cold king exterior to the man underneath. You think I wanted to doubt you? He asked quietly. You think I enjoyed the look on your face when I couldn't hide my confusion? Maya, I've waited 30 years for my mate. 30 years of watching other wolves find their perfect matches while I remained alone. And then I finally feel the bond, finally find you, and nothing makes sense. It's not disappointment in you. It's frustration that someone has clearly hurt you, clearly done something to prevent us from having what we should have had from the moment you were born. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to so badly it hurt. What if there is no curse? What if I really am just broken? Then we'll figure it out together. He took a careful step closer. But I think there's more to your story than anyone has told you. And I think that finding out the truth might be dangerous. His expression hardened. Which is why you're coming with me. Back to my territory where I can protect you while we investigate. What? My eyes widened. I can't just leave. This is my pack, my home. This basement prison is not your home, Nathaniel interrupted coldly. And these people who treat you like dirt are not your pack. You're my mate, which makes you the future Lycan Queen. You're under my protection now, whether you like it or not. You can't just kidnap me. I'm not kidnapping you. I'm claiming what's mine. He moved closer, and despite my anger and fear, that pull in my chest intensified until I could barely breathe. Unless you'd prefer to stay here? Keep scrubbing floors and sleeping in that freezing basement while your sister parades around pretending she's better than you? I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him I didn't need his protection or his pity. But the truth was I'd dreamed of escaping Silver Creek Pack for years. And now here was my chance, wrapped up in the most confusing, terrifying package imaginable. I don't have anything to pack, I finally said. Everything I own is already on my body. Pain flashed across Nathaniel's face. Then we'll get you everything you need. He walked to the door and opened it. Thomas. His beta appeared immediately, as if he'd been waiting right outside. Yes, Your Majesty? Prepare to leave within the hour. Maya is coming with us. Thomas's eyebrows rose slightly, but he simply nodded. Of course. I'll have the cars ready. Nathaniel turned back to me. I need to speak with Alpha Marcus and settle some political matters. Thomas will stay with you. Don't let anyone from this pack near her, he added to his beta, his tone dangerous. Not her sister, not the Luna, no one. Understood, Thomas said. As Nathaniel strode out of the office, I felt the mate bond stretch between us like a rubber band. It didn't break, but the distance hurt in a way I couldn't explain. Thomas gave me a small, sympathetic smile. So, quite a day you're having. I laughed and it came out slightly hysterical. That's one way to put it. For what it's worth, Thomas said, moving to stand by the window as if guarding it. I've known Nathaniel for 15 years. I've never seen him like this. Proactive. You've gotten under his skin in a way no one else ever has. He doesn't even know me. The mate bond doesn't require time. It requires truth. Thomas glanced at me. And I think, Maya Bennett, that there are a lot of truths about you waiting to be discovered. Before I could respond, angry voices erupted from somewhere down the hall. Victoria's shrill accusations, Luna Catherine's cold reasoning, and beneath it all Nathaniel's calm, dangerous responses. This is going to get ugly, Thomas muttered. He had no idea how right he was. Through the office window I could see the sun starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. By the time it fully set I would be gone from Silver Creek Pack. Gone from the only home I'd ever known, heading into the unknown with a mate who didn't quite trust me and a destiny I didn't understand. But as I stood there watching the dying light, that feeling in my chest stirred again. That sense of something waking up, something that had been sleeping for far too long. Whatever happened next, I had the strangest feeling that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't possibly imagine. And somewhere deep inside, a voice that wasn't quite my own whispered, finally. The argument in Alpha Marcus's study could probably be heard throughout the entire house. I stood in the hallway with Thomas, who maintained his post between me and anyone who might try to approach. His relaxed stance didn't fool me. He was ready to spring into action at the slightest threat. You can't just take her. Victoria's voice rang out, high-pitched with fury. She's my sister. She belongs to this pack. Your sister. Nathaniel's voice was cold enough to freeze water. Is that why she lives in a basement while you sleep in luxury? Is that why she wears rags while you dress in designer clothes? Forgive me if I question your sisterly devotion. Your Majesty, please understand, Alpha Marcus interjected, his tone placating. Maya has always been delicate. We've tried to protect her by keeping her away from pack politics and conflicts. Perhaps we've been overprotective, but it came from a place of care. Care. Nathaniel's laugh was devoid of humor. You locked her in a basement. You allowed her to be mocked and abused. You treated the mate of a Lycan King like a servant. If this is your version of care, Alpha Marcus, I'd hate to see your version of cruelty. A heavy silence followed. When Alpha Marcus spoke again, his voice had taken on a harder edge. With all due respect, Your Majesty, Maya may be your mate, but she's still a member of Silver Creek Pack. You can't just remove her without proper protocols. I can do whatever I want, Nathaniel interrupted, his power flooding through the house like a shockwave. Even from the hallway I felt it press against my skin. I am the White Lycan King. I rule over all packs in the Northern Territories, including yours. If I decide your treatment of your pack members constitutes abuse and neglect, I can remove you from your position as Alpha. Would you like me to do that, Marcus? No response came. The threat hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. I thought not, Nathaniel continued. Maya is coming with me. You'll prepare transfer papers releasing her from Silver Creek Pack by tomorrow morning. Any objections? No, Your Majesty, Marcus said, defeated. The door opened and Nathaniel emerged, his expression carved from stone. He barely glanced at me as he strode past. Thomas, bring her to the cars. We leave now. What about her things? Thomas asked, though we both knew I had nothing. We'll handle it at the estate. Nathaniel was already halfway down the hall, moving with purpose. Thomas offered me his arm. Shall we? I took it, grateful for the support because my legs felt unsteady. As we walked toward the front door, Victoria burst out of the study, her face red with rage and tears. You think you've won something? She spat at me. You think this changes anything? You're still Wolfless. Still broken. He'll realize his mistake soon enough, and when he does, don't come crawling back here. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the years of abuse finally reaching their breaking point. Maybe it was the strange awakening I'd been feeling all day. Or maybe I was just tired of being treated like I was worth nothing. I stopped walking and turned to face her fully. You're right, Victoria. I am wolfless. I've spent 23 years being reminded of that fact by you and everyone else in this pack. But you know what? I'd rather be a wolfless mate to a king than a bitter, cruel woman who has to tear others down to feel important. Victoria's mouth fell open in shock. I'd never spoken back to her before. Never defended myself. Maya, Thomas said quietly, a hint of approval in his voice. The cars are waiting. I let him guide me away, leaving Victoria sputtering behind us. Luna Catherine had appeared in the hallway, her expression unreadable as she watched us go. For just a moment something flickered in her eyes. Was it guilt? Fear? But it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. Outside, 3 black SUVs idled in the driveway, their engines rumbling. Several men in dark suits stood guard. The king's security detail, I assumed. They watched me with curious but respectful expressions as Thomas led me to the middle vehicle. Nathaniel was already inside, staring out the window with a distant expression. Thomas opened the door for me and I climbed in, settling into the plush leather seat. The interior smelled like Nathaniel, that intoxicating scent of snow and pine that made my wolf, or whatever was inside me, want to get closer. Thomas shut the door and moved to the front passenger seat. The driver, a stern-looking woman with short black hair, nodded to me in the rearview mirror before pulling out of the driveway. As we drove away from Silver Creek Pack, I watched through the back window as the only home I'd ever known disappeared behind the trees. I should have felt sad or scared or something. Instead I felt lighter. Like a weight I'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. You stood up to her, Nathaniel said suddenly, still not looking at me. Your sister. She's not my sister, I replied quietly. Not really. I don't think she ever was. He finally turned to face me, studying my expression in the dim light of the car. What do you remember about your parents? Almost nothing. I was only 3 when they died. I thought back, trying to pull up those distant memories. I remember my mother had brown hair like mine. She used to sing to me. And my father. I remember he was tall, strong. But their faces are blurry now. What were their names? Sarah and James Bennett. At least that's what Alpha Marcus told me. I frowned. Why? Because I'm going to find out everything I can about them. Nathaniel pulled out his phone and began typing. If someone suppressed your wolf, they did it early. Which means your parents either didn't know, couldn't stop it, or what? His jaw tightened. Or they were killed because of it. The implication hit me like a punch to the gut. You think they were murdered? I think a convenient car accident that orphans a 3-year-old girl who then mysteriously never develops a wolf is suspicious. He finished typing and looked at me again. I'm sorry if this is difficult to hear, but I need you to consider the possibility that everything you've been told about your past is a lie. I wanted to argue. Wanted to defend the only narrative I'd ever known. But the truth was I'd always felt like something was wrong. Like pieces of my life didn't fit together properly. If they were murdered, I said slowly, why would someone take me in? Why not just finish the job? That's what we need to find out. Nathaniel's phone buzzed with an incoming call. He answered it immediately. What did you find? I could hear a woman's voice on the other end, speaking rapidly. Nathaniel's expression grew darker with each passing second. Sealed records, he muttered. Convenient. Dig deeper. I want everything. Birth certificates, medical records, property deeds, everything. I don't care if you have to hack the council's database to get it. He paused, listening. Good. Send it all to my private server. And put out feelers, quietly, about any Bennett family connections to old bloodlines. He ended the call and ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of frustration. What's wrong? I asked. Your parents' death records are sealed. So are most of their personal documents. That level of concealment requires council approval. He looked at me. Someone very powerful wanted your family's information hidden. The council? Why would they care about? I stopped, a terrible thought occurring to me. Unless my family was someone important. Someone they wanted to erase. Exactly. Nathaniel leaned forward, his intensity focused entirely on me. Maya, I need you to think carefully. Have you ever experienced anything unusual? Any moments where you felt stronger than you should? Any times when your senses seemed sharper or you healed faster than normal? I started to shake my head then stopped. Sometimes when I'm really upset or scared, things happen. What kind of things? Small things. Lights flicker. Glass cracks. Once when Victoria pushed me down the stairs, I should have broken bones. But I just bruised. I'd never told anyone this before, always afraid it would make them think I was even more of a freak. And I can hear things. Conversations from rooms away. I always thought I was just paying attention, but those are shifter abilities, Nathaniel finished. Your wolf isn't gone, Maya. It's there. Trapped. Suppressed. But it's fighting to get out. As if responding to his words, that feeling in my chest surged. I gasped, pressing my hand over my heart as warmth spread through my body. It felt like something was pushing against my ribs, trying to break free. What's happening? I managed to ask through the sudden pressure. Nathaniel moved closer immediately, his hand covering mine on my chest. Breathe. Just breathe through it. Your wolf is reacting to the mate bond, to being away from the pack that suppressed it. The change has started. Change. I looked up at him, fear and hope warring in my chest. You mean I might actually shift? I don't know, he admitted. But whatever was done to you, it's beginning to break. Being near me, near your mate, is accelerating the process. His thumb stroked over my knuckles, a surprisingly gentle gesture. I won't let anyone hurt you, Maya. Not ever again. The sincerity in his voice made tears prick at my eyes. Why do you care so much? You barely know me. Because you're mine, he said simply, as if it explained everything. And maybe in the world of shifters and mate bonds it did. Because when I look at you, I see someone who's been fighting their entire life just to survive. Someone who's been told they're nothing when I can feel that you're anything but. His hand moved to cup my face, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. And because even though we just met, the thought of anyone hurting you makes me want to burn the world down. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. All I could do was stare into those ice blue eyes and feel the mate bond pulling tighter, binding us together in ways I was only beginning to understand. The driver cleared her throat. Your Majesty, we're 20 minutes from the border of your territory. Nathaniel pulled back, but he kept his hand wrapped around mine. Maya, when we cross into my lands, you're going to feel a shift. My power is strongest there, and it might trigger another reaction from your wolf. I need you to trust me through it. I don't really have a choice, do I? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You always have a choice. But I'd prefer if you chose to trust me. We drove in silence for a while, the darkness outside broken only by occasional streetlights. I watched the landscape change from the wooded areas around Silver Creek to more mountainous terrain. The trees grew taller here, ancient pines that seemed to touch the sky. Tell me about your territory, I said, needing to distract myself from the growing anxiety in my stomach. The Northern Territories span 3 states and include over 50 packs, Nathaniel explained. My estate is in the heart of it, in the mountains. It's where the old bloodlines originated, where the first Lycans settled. He glanced at me. It's also where we have the most extensive magical resources. Healers, seers, witches who owe allegiance to the Lycan throne. If anyone can figure out what was done to you, they can. And if they can't, then we'll find someone who can. His grip on my hand tightened. I don't give up easily, Maya. Thomas turned around from the front seat. We're crossing the border now, Your Majesty. The moment our car crossed an invisible line, I felt it. Power washed over me like a wave, ancient and overwhelming. It pressed down on my shoulders into my chest, and that something inside me roared in response. I gasped, doubling over as pain lanced through my body. It felt like every nerve was on fire, like something was trying to claw its way out of me from the inside. Paya. Nathaniel's arms wrapped around me, pulling me against his chest. Hold on. Just hold on. It hurts, I managed to gasp out. Some things. Your wolf, Thomas said, his voice urgent. It's trying to surface. The king's power is breaking through whatever's been holding it back. Through the pain, I felt Nathaniel's hand on the back of my neck, his power flowing into me, but not to suppress. To soothe. To encourage. Let it come, he murmured against my ear. Stop fighting it. Let your wolf rise. I wanted to. God, I wanted to so badly. But there was something else there, some kind of barrier I couldn't break through. Like a wall made of shadows and whispers, keeping me from reaching what should have been mine all along. I can't, I sobbed. There's something blocking it. I can feel my wolf, but I can't reach her. Nathaniel's arms tightened around me. Then we'll break down that wall. Together. But not here, not in a car. He looked up at the driver. How much longer? 10 minutes, Your Majesty. Make it 5. The driver pressed harder on the accelerator and we flew through the mountain roads. I stayed curled against Nathaniel's chest, his heartbeat steady and strong beneath my ear. The pain had subsided to a dull ache, but I could still feel my wolf trapped somewhere inside me, crying out to be free. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. I know, Nathaniel said. But you're not alone anymore. Remember that. When we finally pulled up to the estate, I lifted my head and stared in disbelief. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion. No bigger than that. A palace carved from stone and wood, sprawling across the mountainside like something out of a fairy tale. Lights blazed from countless windows and I could see gardens and courtyards and structures that seemed to go on forever. This is your home. I breathed. Our home, Nathaniel corrected. You're the future Queen Maya. This is where you belong. The car stopped in front of massive double doors where several people waited. Thomas jumped out first, opening Nathaniel's door. The king climbed out and then reached back for me, helping me to stand on shaky legs. A woman with silver-streaked black hair and kind eyes rushed forward. Your Majesty, we received your call. Everything is prepared. Her gaze moved to me and her eyes widened slightly. Oh my. Grace, meet Maya. My mate. Nathaniel kept his arm around my waist, supporting me. She needs a healer. Now. Of course. Grace moved closer, her eyes never leaving mine. My name is Grace Martinez. I'm the chief healer for the Northern Territories. She reached out slowly as if asking permission, and when I nodded, she placed her hand on my forehead. Her expression changed immediately. Goddess above, she whispered. Who did this to you? You can feel it? I asked. The block. Feel it? Child, I can practically see it. This isn't just a simple suppression spell. Grace looked at Nathaniel, her expression grave. This is old magic. Very old. And very, very dark. Someone bound her wolf when she was barely more than a baby, and they did it with blood magic. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Blood magic. Even I knew that was forbidden, outlawed by every supernatural council in existence. Can you break it? Nathaniel demanded. Grace hesitated. I can try. But Your Majesty, this kind of magic, it usually requires death to fuel it. Someone died to cast this curse. And breaking it. She looked at me with something like pity. Breaking it might require a death in return. My blood ran cold. Whose death? Either the caster's, Grace said quietly. Or yours. The room they gave me was larger than the entire basement I'd lived in for 20 years. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the mountains, now dark against the night sky. A massive bed dominated one wall, covered in soft blankets that looked like they cost more than everything I'd ever owned combined. There was a sitting area with plush couches, a fireplace that crackled with real flames, and a bathroom that was practically the size of a spa. I stood in the middle of it all, feeling completely out of place. Grace had insisted I rest before attempting anything with the curse. Nathaniel had argued, but even I could see the wisdom in her words. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and whatever was happening inside me had left me shaky and weak. Trying to break a blood curse in this condition would be suicide. So here I was, alone in a palace, wearing borrowed clothes that actually fit, trying to process the fact that someone had wanted me powerless badly enough to use forbidden magic. A soft knock on the door made me jump. Come in, I called, expecting Grace or maybe one of the staff members who had been hovering anxiously since we arrived. Instead, Nathaniel entered, carrying a tray laden with food. He'd changed out of his formal clothes into simple dark jeans and a black sweater that somehow made him look even more intimidating. And more handsome, a traitorous part of my brain whispered. You didn't eat dinner, he said, setting the tray on the coffee table. Grace said you need to keep your strength up. I wasn't hungry. The lie was obvious. My stomach growled the moment I smelled the food. A slight smile tugged at Nathaniel's lips. Your wolf might be suppressed, but apparently your stomach isn't. He gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll keep you company if you don't mind. I minded, but not for the reasons he probably thought. Being near him made the mate bond sing, made that trapped part of me push harder against its prison. It was overwhelming and confusing and made me want things I had no right to want. But I was also starving, so I sat and picked up a sandwich. The first bite was heaven. Real meat, fresh bread, vegetables that actually had flavor. I tried to eat slowly to maintain some dignity, but I ended up devouring half the tray while Nathaniel watched with an expression I couldn't quite read. "When was the last time you had a proper meal?" he asked quietly. I swallowed. "I ate every day. Leftovers from the pack meals, mostly." "That's not what I asked." I set down the sandwich, appetite suddenly gone despite my still empty stomach. "Why does it matter? That life is over now." "It matters because every detail helps me understand what was done to you." Nathaniel leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "And because I need to know exactly how much I'm going to make them pay for it. Revenge won't change the past." "No," he agreed. "But it'll damn sure make me feel better." Despite everything, I almost smiled. There was something refreshing about his blunt honesty. No pretense, no careful political maneuvering. Just raw, honest emotion. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Anything. Why haven't you taken a mate before now? You're 29. Most shifters find their mates by 25. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. "Because I killed the last person who got close to me." The words hung in the air like a bomb. I set down my food completely, giving him my full attention. "Her name was Elizabeth," he continued, his voice carefully neutral. "She wasn't my mate, but we were close. She was a member of my court, a trusted advisor's daughter. Someone I thought I could trust." His jaw clenched. "She was working for a rival faction. They wanted my territory, wanted to overthrow the Lycan throne. She poisoned me, nearly succeeded in killing me. When I discovered the truth, my wolf..." He stopped, his hands curling into fists. "I lost control. By the time I came back to myself, she was dead." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Don't be." She chose her path. But I could hear the pain underneath his cold words. After that, I swore I wouldn't let anyone close again. Wouldn't risk my throne or my people for the sake of companionship. I thought I could ignore the mate bond if it ever appeared, that I could rule alone. He looked at me, then really looked at me. "And then I felt you." Felt the pull halfway across the territory, so strong I couldn't ignore it even if I wanted to. My wolf went crazy, demanding I find you, claim you, protect you. "But you didn't want to," I said softly. "You didn't want a mate." "I didn't want the vulnerability," he corrected. "I didn't want to risk caring about someone again, only to discover they'd betrayed me. But the mate bond doesn't give you a choice about caring. It just is." He reached out slowly and took my hand. "I'm not good at this, Maya. I don't know how to be gentle or patient or any of the things you probably deserve. But I'm trying. And I need you to understand that whatever happens with breaking this curse, whatever we discover about your past, I'm not going anywhere." The sincerity in his voice made my throat tight. "What if I am just a wolfless girl? What if there's nothing special about me at all? Then you're a wolfless girl who's my mate, and that makes you the most important person in my world." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. "But I don't think that's what we're going to find. I think you're going to turn out to be far more than anyone ever imagined. And I think that's exactly why someone tried so hard to keep you down." Before I could respond, my body seized. The pain came back with a vengeance, sharp and overwhelming. I gasped, doubling over as that thing inside me thrashed against its bonds. Nathaniel was on his feet instantly, pulling me into his arms. "Breathe through it. I've got you." "It's getting worse," I panted. "Every hour it gets worse. Your wolf knows her mate is close. She's fighting harder to reach me." His hand pressed against my back and I felt his power flow into me again, warm and steady and soothing. "We're not waiting until morning. I'm getting Grace now. She said I needed to rest. And you have. But if we wait too long, your wolf might tear you apart trying to break free." He helped me to the bed and settled me against the pillows. "Stay here. I'll be right back." He was gone in a flash of movement, leaving me alone with the pain. I pressed my hands against my chest, feeling my heart race beneath my palms. That voice inside me was louder now, clearer. "Let me out. Please let me out." "I'm trying," I whispered to my wolf. "I swear I'm trying. Sister." I've waited so long. So long in the dark. Sister. My wolf called me sister. The intimacy of it, the loneliness in that voice, made tears stream down my face. She'd been trapped inside me my entire life, aware and alone, unable to emerge or connect with me the way she was supposed to. I'm so sorry, I sobbed. I didn't know. I didn't know you were there. Not your fault. Never your fault. The witch, she took everything. Took our family. Took our power. But she couldn't take all of it. Some remained. Deep, deep down. What witch? What power? But the voice faded, the pain subsiding to a dull ache once more. I lay there, breathing hard, trying to process what my wolf had just told me. A witch had cast the curse. A witch who had taken our family. Our family. Not my family, our family. As if my wolf had known them, had memories I didn't have access to. The door burst open and Nathaniel returned with Grace, Thomas, and an older man I hadn't met before. The stranger had long white hair and eyes that seemed to see right through me. He wore robes decorated with strange symbols and power rolled off him in waves. "This is Silas," Nathaniel said. "He's a warlock, one of the most powerful in North America. If anyone can safely break a blood curse, it's him." Silas approached the bed slowly, his ancient eyes studying me with intense curiosity. "So you're the one causing all this fuss?" His voice was surprisingly gentle. "Hey, I nodded, not sure what I was agreeing to. Silas placed one weathered hand on my forehead and closed his eyes. His power swept through me, not invasive like I'd expected, but thorough. I felt him examining every part of me, searching for the curse. When he finally opened his eyes, his expression was grave. Grace was right. This is blood magic, and old blood magic at that. The signature is familiar, but I can't quite place it." He looked at Nathaniel. "Breaking this won't be easy or safe. The curse is tied directly to her life force. If we're not careful, removing it could kill her." "Then we'll be careful," Nathaniel said firmly. "What do you need?" "A circle of power, protective runes, and several hours of uninterrupted work." Silas looked at me. "Young lady, I need you to understand what we're about to attempt. This curse has been a part of you for 20 years. Removing it will be like tearing out a piece of your soul. The pain will be immense. Your wolf, when she emerges, will be confused and possibly dangerous. She's been caged her entire life. Are you prepared for that?" Could anyone really be prepared for something like this? I thought about my life at Silver Creek Pack. The abuse, the isolation, the constant reminder that I was less than everyone else. I thought about the voice of my wolf, calling me sister, telling me she'd been alone in the dark. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm ready." "Good." Silas turned to Grace. "Get me white sage, mountain ash, and silver powder. Thomas, I need you to clear the ballroom, we'll need space." "Your Majesty." He looked at Nathaniel. "You should know that as her mate, you're the most powerful anchor she has. Your presence will help stabilize her during the process, but it might also put you at risk. If her wolf emerges violently, she'll be drawn to you first." "I don't care about the risk," Nathaniel said without hesitation. "I'll be there." Silas nodded as if he'd expected that answer. "Then let's begin preparations. Maya, try to rest for another hour. You're going to need every ounce of strength you have." They filed out, leaving only Nathaniel behind. He sat on the edge of the bed, his hand finding mine automatically. "You don't have to do this tonight," he said quietly. "If you're not ready." "I am ready." I squeezed his hand. "I've been not ready my entire life. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being weak." "You're not weak." His voice was fierce. "You survived 20 years in hell and came out with your kindness intact. That's not weakness, Maya. That's strength." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to see myself the way he seemed to see me. What if something goes wrong? What if my wolf is broken? Dangerous? Then we'll handle it together. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. "But I don't think she'll be broken. I think she'll be powerful. And I think everyone who tried to cage her is going to regret it." An hour later, I stood in the center of an enormous ballroom, surrounded by a circle of white powder mixed with herbs. Candles burned at cardinal points, their flames steady despite the fact that every door and window was closed. Runes had been painted on the floor in what I hoped wasn't actual blood, and the air hummed with power so thick I could taste it. Nathaniel stood just outside the circle, his eyes never leaving me. Thomas and Grace flanked him, ready to assist if needed. And Silas moved around the circle, chanting in a language that made my bones vibrate. "Are you ready, child?" Silas asked me. I took a deep breath and nodded. "Then let us begin." He raised his hands and the candles flared brighter. "Fair warning, this is going to hurt like hell." He wasn't kidding. The moment Silas's power hit the curse, I screamed. It felt like someone had set my blood on fire, like every nerve in my body was being ripped apart. I fell to my knees, my hands pressed against the floor as I tried to breathe through the agony. "Stay with it," Silas commanded. "I can see the curse. It's wrapped around your heart, your spine, your very essence. I'm going to start unraveling it, but you need to help me. Reach for your wolf, Maya. Call to her." Through the pain I tried to focus. Tried to find that voice that had spoken to me earlier. "Sister," I called out mentally. "Sister, I need you. Please." For a moment, nothing. Then, "Here. I'm here." Her voice was stronger now, closer. I felt her pushing against the curse from the inside while Silas worked from the outside. The combined pressure was unbearable, but I gritted my teeth and held on. "That's it." Silas's voice was strained. "Keep calling to her. The curse is weakening." But something was wrong. I could feel it in the way Silas's chanting faltered, in the way Grace gasped. "There's another layer," Grace said urgently. "Silas, there's a binding beneath the curse. If you break the curse without addressing the binding." "I see it." Silas's voice was grim. "Goddess help us, I see it. This isn't just a suppression curse." "What is it?" Nathaniel demanded, taking a step closer to the circle. Silas looked up, his ancient eyes wide with shock and something that looked like fear. "It's a bloodline seal," he breathed. "Someone didn't just suppress her wolf. They sealed away her entire heritage, her true nature." He looked at me and I saw awe in his expression. "Maya, what family did you say you came from?" "The Bennetts," I gasped out through the pain. "Sarah and James Bennett." "No." Silas shook his head slowly. "That's not possible. The Bennett name was a cover, a false identity." His hands moved faster now, pulling at threads of magic I couldn't see. "Child, do you know what a White Lycan is?" "A myth," I managed. "The first shifters. The originals." "Not a myth. Very real. And very, very rare." Silas's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "There are only 2 White Lycan bloodlines left in the world. One of them stands outside this circle." He gestured to Nathaniel. "The other was thought to have been wiped out 20 years ago in a massacre that killed every member of the royal family." My heart stopped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the signature on this curse, the blood used to fuel it, it belongs to a witch named Helena Blackwood. And she was executed 20 years ago for treason and murder." Silas met my eyes. "For murdering the White Lycan royal family and stealing their infant daughter." The room spun. "No. That's not, I'm not." "You are," Nathaniel said, and his voice was full of wonder and fury all at once. "You're not just my mate, Maya. You're the lost princess of the White Lycan throne. You're royalty." And with that revelation the curse shattered. The pain exploded into something beyond description. I screamed, my body arching as power flooded through me. 20 years of suppressed magic, suppressed strength, suppressed everything, all releasing at once. And beneath it all, my wolf finally broke free. "Sister," she roared in my mind, her voice echoing with power and rage and joy. "We are free." The last thing I saw before the transformation took me was Nathaniel's face, his eyes wide with awe as my body began to change. As white fur erupted across my skin. As my bones shifted and reformed. As I became for the first time in my life what I was always meant to be. A White Lycan. Powerful, ancient, and absolutely furious. The shift was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd heard other wolves describe their first transformation as painful but natural, like slipping into a warm bath. This was different. This was 20 years of caged power exploding outward all at once, reshaping everything I thought I knew about myself. My bones cracked and reformed. My muscles stretched and strengthened. My senses sharpened until I could hear heartbeats from across the mansion, smell emotions in the air, feel the vibrations of every living thing around me. And through it all, my wolf sang with pure, unbridled joy. "Finally, sister, we are whole." When the transformation completed, I stood on 4 legs in the center of that ritual circle, and the world looked completely different. Colors were sharper. Sounds were clearer. I could smell everything. The sage and ash from the ritual, the fear and awe from the people watching me, and above all, the scent of my mate. Pine and snow and something wild that called to every instinct I had. I turned my massive head toward Nathaniel, and even in my wolf form, I could see his expression of absolute wonder. He dropped to one knee, his ice-blue eyes wide as he stared at me. "Aya," he breathed. You're magnificent." I looked down at myself and froze. My fur was pure white, gleaming like fresh snow under the candlelight. I was huge, easily as large as Nathaniel would be in his wolf form, maybe larger. Power radiated from me in waves, and I could feel it responding to my emotions, flickering around me like visible energy. "We are what we were always meant to be," my wolf said proudly. "We are White Lycan. We are royal. We are yours." The possessiveness in her voice when she referred to Nathaniel made me stumble slightly on my new paws. My wolf had opinions apparently. Strong ones. "Can you shift back?" Grace asked gently, staying carefully outside the circle. "Maya, can you hear us?" I wanted to respond, but I didn't know how. My wolf form felt natural now that I was in it, but I had no idea how to reverse the process. Panic started to rise in my chest. But my wolf soothed. "I will show you. We're one now, sister. You shift like breathing. Like this." She guided me through the process, and I felt my body begin to change again. This shift was easier, more controlled. Within moments, I stood on two legs again, completely naked and shaking. Nathaniel was there immediately, wrapping a blanket around me before I could even process my embarrassment. His arms came around me, supporting me as my legs nearly gave out. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're okay. You're more than okay." I looked up at him, and for the first time I truly saw him through my wolf's eyes. The mate bond had been strong before, but now it was overwhelming. Every instinct I had screamed at me to get closer to him, to claim him, to never let him go. "Nathaniel," I whispered, and my voice sounded different, stronger, more confident. "What just happened to me? You became who you were always meant to be." Silas approached slowly, respect clear in his expression. "Your Highness, I must apologize. Had I known who you truly were—" "Don't call me that," I interrupted, still clinging to Nathaniel. "I'm not. I don't know how to be a princess. I barely know how to be a wolf." "You'll learn," Nathaniel said firmly. He looked at Silas. "Tell us everything. Who were her real parents? What happened to them?" Silas gestured for us to sit, and Nathaniel guided me to a chair at the edge of the ballroom, never letting go of me. Thomas brought me a glass of water, and Grace draped another blanket over my shoulders, fussing over me like a mother hen. 23 years ago, Silas began, his voice heavy with old grief. There were two White Lycan royal families. King Nathaniel's line, which ruled the northern territories, and the Moonshadow line, which ruled the eastern lands. The Moonshadows were led by King Alexander and Queen Sarah, your parents, Maya. My breath caught. Sarah. That's what Alpha Marcus said my mother's name was. As it was her name. At least they kept that much truth. Silas's expression darkened. The two royal families were allies, friends even. Your father Alexander and Nathaniel's father Marcus were like brothers. They dreamed of uniting their kingdoms through a marriage between their children, you and Nathaniel. I looked at Nathaniel in shock. We were engaged? Betrothed as infants, Nathaniel confirmed, his jaw tight. Though I didn't know the whole truth until recently. My parents told me my intended bride died in the massacre. They said the entire Moonshadow line was wiped out. They were, Silas said quietly. Or so everyone believed. The attack came during the full moon celebration, when the royal family was at their most vulnerable, surrounded by guests and allies. A witch named Helena Blackwood had infiltrated the court, gained their trust. She was working with a faction of werewolves who believed that White Lycans had too much power, that the bloodlines should be ended. What happened? I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. Helena poisoned the food at the celebration. Wolfsbane mixed with something darker, something that paralyzed shifters but left humans unharmed. While the adults lay helpless, the traitors attacked. Silas's voice shook slightly. They killed everyone. King Alexander, Queen Sarah, the entire royal guard. They burned the palace to the ground. But I survived, I whispered. Why? Because Helena wanted something more valuable than your death. She wanted your power. Silas stood and began pacing. White Lycan blood is the most potent ingredient in dark magic. A White Lycan child, especially a royal one, could be used for rituals that would grant immense power. But you were too young, too undeveloped. So Helena cast a curse that would suppress your wolf, hide your nature, and keep you powerless until she was ready to use you. The blood magic, Grace said, understanding dawning. She used the deaths of Maya's family to fuel the curse. Exactly. The curse was tied to their murders, bound with their blood. It was meant to last until Maya turned 25, at which point Helena planned to complete whatever ritual she had in mind. Silas looked at me with something like admiration. But she didn't count on the mate bond. Nathaniel's presence, his power as your destined mate, accelerated the breaking of the curse. What happened to Helena? Nathaniel asked, his voice deadly quiet. She was discovered 3 years after the massacre. She'd been living in hiding, but one of her accomplices betrayed her. She was tried by the council and executed for treason and murder. Silas paused. But before she died, she revealed that she'd hidden the Moonshadow Princess somewhere safe, somewhere no one would think to look for royalty. Silver Creek Pack, Thomas said suddenly. She gave Maya to Marcus Bennett. But why would an alpha take in the daughter of the woman who orchestrated a massacre? Because he was part of it, I said, and suddenly everything made sense. The way Marcus had always treated me like a burden. The sealed records. Victoria's cruelty. He was one of the traitors, wasn't he? Silas nodded grimly. We suspected but could never prove it. Marcus Bennett was at the celebration that night, was one of the wolves who supposedly barely escaped the attack. Helena must have promised him power, territory, something in exchange for his cooperation. And when she died, she left instructions for him to keep you hidden and weak. That's why they locked me in the basement, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Why Victoria tormented me. Why they never let me train or learn or grow. They were afraid that if I became too strong, too visible, someone would realize who I really was. And they were right to be afraid, Nathaniel said, his power flaring around him. His eyes had gone cold and deadly. Because now that we know the truth, Marcus Bennett and everyone who helped him are going to pay for what they've done. Wait. I grabbed his arm, feeling his muscles tense beneath my fingers. If Marcus was part of the conspiracy and Helena is dead, who else was involved? Who else knows who I really am? The room went silent as everyone processed the implications. There had to be others, Thomas said slowly. A conspiracy this large, this successful. It required multiple people in positions of power. The council, Grace breathed. That's why Maya's records were sealed. Someone on the council must have been involved. Or still is involved, Nathaniel finished, his expression darkening. Which means the moment we reveal Maya's identity, we put a target on her back. They already tried to kill me once, I pointed out. And they kept me suppressed for 20 years. How is revealing the truth more dangerous than staying hidden? Because now you're a threat, Silas explained. Before you were a powerless girl, no danger to anyone. But now you're a White Lycan princess with legitimate claim to the Eastern Territories. You're Nathaniel's mate, which makes you the future queen of the Northern Territories as well. United, the two of you would have more power than anyone has held in centuries. That's why they wanted the bloodlines ended, I realized. Not because White Lycans were too powerful individually, but because if the two royal lines ever joined, we'd be unstoppable, Nathaniel finished. He looked at me, and despite the gravity of the situation, I saw a hint of a smile. They tried to prevent the one thing that would have given them nightmares. And they failed. So what do we do? I asked. We can't just let them get away with murdering my family. We won't. Nathaniel's voice was steel. But we need to be smart about this. We need proof, evidence that will force the council to act. And we need to make sure you're safe while we're gathering it. I can help with that, Silas offered. Now that the curse is broken, Maya needs to learn to control her power. White Lycans are significantly stronger than regular wolves, but that strength needs training. I can teach her. I'll help too, Grace added. Her wolf has been caged for 20 years. She'll need guidance adjusting to having full access to her instincts and abilities. I looked around at these people, strangers just hours ago, who were now offering to help me, protect me, teach me. It was overwhelming and humbling and terrifying all at once. Why? I asked softly. Why are you all willing to risk yourselves for me? Because you're our queen, Thomas said simply. Whether you've been crowned or not, whether you know how to rule or not, you're the rightful heir to the Moonshadow throne. And we protect our own. And because you're my mate, Nathaniel added, his hand finding mine. Which means anyone who threatens you threatens me. And I don't take threats lightly. The conviction in his voice made something warm bloom in my chest. My wolf purred contentedly, pleased with her mate's protectiveness. He is strong, she said approvingly. You will help us avenge our family. Help us reclaim what was stolen. I don't know how to be a princess, I admitted. I don't know how to fight or lead or any of the things I'm supposed to know. Then we'll teach you, Nathaniel said. Starting tomorrow. Tonight you need rest. Your body has been through an incredible transformation and you need to recover. He was right. Exhaustion was creeping through me now that the adrenaline was fading. My limbs felt heavy, and the blanket wrapped around me seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Come on, Nathaniel said gently, helping me to my feet. Let's get you back to your room. Your Majesty, Silas interrupted. A word of caution. Now that Maya's wolf is free, the mate bond will be significantly stronger. For both of you. I'd recommend. I know, Nathaniel cut him off, a slight edge to his voice. We'll manage. Silas bowed slightly, but I caught the concerned look he exchanged with Grace. Nathaniel guided me out of the ballroom and through the quiet halls of the mansion. Staff members we passed stopped and stared, their eyes wide. I realized they must have felt my power when the curse broke, must know that something significant had happened. They're going to talk, I murmured. Let them. Nathaniel's arm tightened around my waist. By tomorrow, everyone in the Northern Territories will know that the lost Moonshadow Princess has been found. Let them spread the word. Let everyone know that you're under my protection. We reached my room and Nathaniel hesitated at the doorway. I should let you rest. But neither of us moved. The mate bond pulled taut between us, stronger than ever now that my wolf was free. She wanted him close, wanted him to stay, and I couldn't deny that I wanted the same thing. Stay, I heard myself say. Please. I don't want to be alone right now. Nathaniel's eyes darkened, and I could see the internal war playing out on his face. Maya, if I stay, if I'm that close to you right now with the bond this strong. I trust you, I interrupted. And surprisingly I did. Despite everything, despite how new this all was, I trusted him not to push me further than I was ready for. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll stay. But I'm sleeping on the couch. Deal. I went into the bathroom and found soft pajamas laid out for me. Someone on the staff was incredibly efficient. When I emerged, Nathaniel had removed his shoes and sweater, leaving him in just a white t-shirt and jeans. He dimmed the lights and was arranging pillows on the couch. I climbed into the massive bed, sinking into the soft mattress. My entire body ached, but it was a good ache. The ache of muscles that had finally been used, of a body that was finally whole. Nathaniel. I called softly. Yes. Thank you. For believing me. For protecting me. My voice caught. For wanting me even when you thought I was broken. The couch creaked as he stood, and then he was there, sitting on the edge of my bed. His hand reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. You were never broken, Maya. You were bound, caged, hidden. But never broken. His thumb traced my cheekbone. And I don't just want you. I need you. My wolf recognized his other half the moment we met, and now that you're free, now that I can feel the full force of what you are. He shook his head in wonder. You're extraordinary. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it. Tears pricked my eyes. I don't know how to do this. Any of this. Neither do I, he admitted. But we'll figure it out together. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead, gentle and chaste but full of promise. Sleep, my queen. Tomorrow your real life begins. He returned to the couch and I closed my eyes, letting exhaustion pull me under. But just before sleep claimed me, I heard my wolf's voice, content and certain. Home, she whispered. We're finally home. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment I forgot where I was and panic seized me. Then memory flooded back. The curse breaking, my transformation, the revelation about my true identity. I sat up slowly, taking in the luxurious room that was now mine. The couch was empty, but I could hear movement in the sitting area. I padded out of the bedroom to find Nathaniel standing by the window, fully dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, talking quietly on his phone. He turned when he heard me, his eyes warming as they took me in. "I have to go," he said into the phone. "Yes, tonight. Make the arrangements." He ended the call and gave me his full attention. "Good morning. How do you feel?" "Sore," I admitted. "And hungry. And like I might still be dreaming." A slight smile tugged at his lips. "Not dreaming. Though I've arranged for breakfast to be brought up. I thought you might prefer to eat here rather than facing the entire household just yet." "Thank you." I moved to the window, standing beside him to look out at the mountains. In the daylight they were breathtaking, snow-capped peaks stretching as far as I could see. "It's beautiful here. It's your home now." He turned to face me fully. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Last night while you were sleeping I made some calls. By now, every alpha in the Northern Territories knows that I've found my mate. I didn't reveal your identity as the Moonshadow Princess yet. That announcement needs to be made carefully with proper ceremony and witnesses. But they know you're under my protection." "What does that mean?" "It means that anyone who threatens you threatens the throne. It means that you're no longer just Maya Bennett, the Wolfless girl from Silver Creek. You're the Lycan King's mate, and that comes with both power and responsibility." A knock at the door interrupted us. Nathaniel called for them to enter, and several staff members wheeled in carts laden with food, eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, pastries that smelled like heaven, and enough coffee to caffeinate a small army. "Thank you," I said to the staff. They bowed slightly before leaving, but not before I caught their curious glances. Word had definitely spread. Nathaniel and I sat down to eat, and I tried not to devour everything in sight. My wolf was ravenous, demanding fuel after the energy spent on transformation and healing. "So what happens now?" I asked between bites of the fluffiest pancakes I'd ever tasted. "How you train," Nathaniel said. "Silas will work with you on controlling your power. Grace will help you understand your wolf. Thomas will teach you about pack politics and the structure of our territories. And he paused, something intense flickering in his eyes. "I will teach you how to fight." "Fight." "You're a target now, Maya. Whether we reveal your identity or not, there are people who don't want you alive. You need to be able to protect yourself." His expression softened. "Besides, White Lycans are natural warriors. It's in your blood. You might even enjoy it." The thought should have terrified me. Yesterday I would have said I could never hurt anyone, never raise my hand in violence. But something had changed with my transformation. My wolf was more than just a part of me, she was a warrior, a predator, and she was eager to learn. "When do we start?" I asked. Pride flickered across Nathaniel's face. "After you finish breakfast. I've had training gear prepared for you. The gym is." His phone rang, cutting him off. He frowned at the screen. "It's Marcus Bennett." My stomach dropped. "Don't answer it." "I have to." He stood, moving away from the table. "If he's calling me directly, something's happened." He answered, his voice cold and formal. "Alpha Marcus. To what do I owe this call?" I couldn't hear Marcus's response, but I watched Nathaniel's expression darken with each passing second. His power flared around him, making the air thick and heavy. "Is that so?" Nathaniel said finally, his voice deadly quiet. "And you expect me to believe that?" Pause. "No, Marcus. I don't think I will. In fact, I think you should prepare for a formal inquiry into your pack's treatment of its members. I'll be sending investigators within the week." Another pause. "That wasn't a request. Your Majesty." He ended the call and stood there, his jaw clenched with barely contained rage. "What did he say?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "He claims you were kidnapped. That I took you against your will." Nathaniel turned to face me. "He's filed a formal complaint with the council, demanding your return and claiming I've overstepped my authority." "That's insane. I came willingly." "I know. But he's playing politics." Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair. "He's counting on the council's tendency to favor local alphas over the king in disputes. And he's hoping that in the investigation, your true identity stays hidden." "So what do? We force his hand." Nathaniel's eyes gleamed with dangerous intent. "We accelerate our timeline. Tonight we hold a formal ceremony announcing our mate bond. We invite every alpha in the territory, Every council member we can get here on short notice. And we reveal exactly who you are in front of witnesses who can't be silenced or bought. Tonight. My voice came out higher than intended. Nathaniel, I can barely control my wolf. I don't know how to act like royalty. I can't. Yes, you can. He crossed to me, taking both my hands in his. Maya, you've spent your entire life being told you're not good enough. But you were born for this. It's literally in your blood. All you have to do is be yourself, strong, brave, and honest. The rest will follow. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to have his confidence. But the thought of standing in front of hundreds of powerful shifters and claiming my heritage terrified me. We can do this, my wolf assured me. We were born to lead. Born to rule. They stole our throne, sister. It's time we took it back. Her certainty bolstered my courage. Hey, I said. Tonight. We do this tonight. Nathaniel smiled, fierce and proud. That's my queen. He pulled me to my feet. Come on. We have a lot to prepare and not much time. First lesson, how to command a room full of alphas without saying a word. The next few hours passed in a blur. Grace arrived with a team of stylists who measured me for a gown that would somehow be ready by evening. Silas appeared to give me a crash course in projecting power and shielding my thoughts from those who might try to read them. Thomas briefed me on the names and faces of key political players I'd need to remember. And through it all, Nathaniel stayed close, a constant presence that both calmed and excited me in equal measure. By late afternoon I was exhausted and overwhelmed. Nathaniel found me standing on one of the mansion's many balconies, staring out at the mountains and trying to catch my breath. Ready to run away yet? He asked, joining me at the railing. The thought crossed my mind, I admitted. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday I was scrubbing floors. Today I'm preparing to announce I'm a princess. It's overwhelming, he finished. I know. But Maya, look at me. I turned to face him. You don't have to do this alone. Whatever happens tonight, whatever comes after, I'm with you. We're in this together. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. You barely know me. Yes, we're mates, but that's just biology. Why are you really doing all of this? Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment, his ice blue eyes searching mine. You want the truth? Always. Because when I look at you, I don't just see my mate. I see someone who survived hell and came out stronger. Someone who faced rejection and abuse and never let it break her spirit. Someone who, in the span of a single day, learned her entire life was a lie and still had the courage to stand up and fight back. He reached out, cupping my face in his hands. You asked me why I'm doing this. I'm doing it because you deserve justice. Because your family deserves justice. And because I've waited 30 years for someone who makes me want to be better than the cold, distant king everyone thinks I am. His words stole my breath. Before I could think better of it, I rose on my toes and kissed him. It was brief, barely more than a brush of lips, but it sent electricity racing through my entire body. When I pulled back, Nathaniel's eyes had darkened to midnight blue. Maya, he said, his voice rough. If you keep doing that, we're not going to make it to the ceremony. Would that be so bad? The boldness surprised even me, but my wolf was pushing me forward, encouraging me to claim our mate. Yes, he said firmly, though I could see the effort it took. Because tonight we're going to stand in front of everyone who ever doubted you, everyone who ever hurt you, and we're going to show them exactly who you are. And they're going to regret every single moment they underestimated you. The promise in his voice sent shivers down my spine. Okay, I breathed. Let's go show them. His smile was predatory and proud. That's my girl. The grand ballroom had been transformed into something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors polished to a mirror shine. White roses and moonflowers, flowers that only bloomed at night, draped every surface, filling the air with their sweet scent. At the far end of the room, 2 throne-like chairs sat on a raised platform waiting. I stood in a private chamber off the ballroom, staring at myself in a full-length mirror and barely recognizing the woman looking back. The gown Grace's team had created was a masterpiece. White silk that seemed to shimmer with its own light, fitted perfectly to my body before flowing out in elegant waves. The neckline was modest but regal, and intricate silver embroidery wound up the bodice like vines. My hair had been swept up in an elaborate style with small white flowers woven through it. I wore no jewelry except for one piece, A silver necklace with a crescent moon pendant that Nathaniel had given me an hour ago. It was your mother's, he'd said softly, fastening it around my neck. Silas found it in the archives. One of the few things that survived the massacre. Now I touched it gently, feeling the weight of history and loss pressing down on my shoulders. You look like a queen, Grace said from behind me, her eyes shining with tears. Like you were always meant to stand in that room and command respect. I feel like I'm going to throw up, I admitted. Grace laughed, but it was kind. That's normal. Even the most confident rulers get nervous before important events. She came to stand beside me, adjusting a fold in my dress. But Maya, I need you to understand something. The moment you walk through those doors, everything changes. People will see you differently. Treat you differently. Some will respect you, some will fear you, and some will want to destroy you. Great pep talk, I muttered. I'm not done. Grace turned me to face her fully. But none of that matters. What matters is how you see yourself. You're not that scared girl from Silver Creek anymore. You're a White Lycan princess, the rightful heir to a throne, and the mate of the most powerful king in North America. Own that power, Maya. Don't apologize for it. A knock at the door interrupted us. It's time, Thomas called. The guests are assembled. My heart jumped into my throat. How many? 243, Thomas replied through the door. Every alpha within a day's travel, plus their betas and lunas. Several council members. And yes, Alpha Marcus and his family are here. Of course they were. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. We are ready, my wolf said confidently. Let them see what they tried to destroy. Let them see what they failed to break. Grace squeezed my hand once more, then opened the door. Thomas stood waiting, dressed in formal attire, looking every inch the king's beta. His expression was carefully neutral, but I saw the encouragement in his eyes. Nathaniel is already inside, he said. He'll announce you, then you'll enter. Just walk to the platform and stand beside him. Don't worry about anything else, he'll handle the rest. What about Marcus? What if he tries something? Then he'll have to go through every warrior in this room, and trust me when I say they're all loyal to their king. Thomas offered me his arm. Your Highness, shall we? The title still sounded foreign, but I took his arm and let him lead me through the corridors toward the ballroom. With each step, I could hear the murmur of voices growing louder, could feel the press of so much power gathered in one place. We stopped just outside the massive double doors. Through the gap, I could see the crowd, hundreds of shifters in their finest clothes, all eyes turned toward Nathaniel, who stood on the platform looking every inch the powerful king he was. Brothers and sisters, his voice rang out, commanding immediate silence. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I know many of you traveled through the night to be here, and your loyalty is noted and appreciated. Your Majesty, a voice called out, older male with an edge of impatience. You summoned us for an emergency announcement. If this is merely about your mate. Councilman Drake, Nathaniel interrupted smoothly, his tone pleasant but with an undercurrent of steel. I would ask that you hold your questions until I've finished. Unless you'd like to challenge your king's authority in front of this assembly. Silence. I couldn't see Councilman Drake, but I imagined him shrinking back under Nathaniel's stare. Good, Nathaniel continued. Now, as many of you know, I found my mate 2 days ago. What you don't know is who she is, where she came from, and why her identity changes everything. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I heard Victoria's voice, shrill and angry, saying something I couldn't make out. My hands clenched into fists. 23 years ago, Nathaniel said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, a tragedy occurred that shook our world. The Moonshadow royal family was massacred, their bloodline supposedly ended. The investigation was closed, the perpetrators executed, and we all moved on. But the investigation was incomplete. Because one member of that family survived. The murmurs grew louder. I could feel the shock and confusion radiating from the crowd. The infant princess was taken, hidden, her wolf suppressed through dark magic so that no one would recognize her true nature. She was placed with a pack where she would be kept weak, isolated, unable to fulfill her destiny. For 23 years she lived as a prisoner, told she was worthless, told she had no wolf, while all along she was royalty. This is ridiculous. Marcus's voice boomed out. I tensed, my wolf snarling in response. Your Majesty, with all due respect, the moonshadow line died out. Everyone knows this. This is some sort of trick. Is it? Nathaniel's power flooded the room, making everyone fall silent. Tell me, Alpha Marcus. Where did you find the girl you raised as your daughter? The one you kept in a basement? The one you told me was your adopted sister's child? Silence. That's what I thought. Nathaniel's eyes swept across the crowd. The curse that suppressed her wolf was broken 2 nights ago. She shifted for the first time and her bloodline revealed itself. Silas, our master warlock, confirmed her identity through magical signature. The necklace she wears belonged to Queen Sarah Moonshadow and responds only to the true bloodline. He paused, letting his words sink in. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you the lost princess of the Moonshadow line, the rightful heir to the Eastern Territories, and my destined mate, Princess Maya Moonshadow. The doors swung open. For a heartbeat I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Every eye in that massive room turned to me, and the weight of their stares nearly buckled my knees. Walk, my wolf commanded. Head high. Shoulders back. Show them what a queen looks like. I stepped through the doorway and the crowd parted like water. The walk to the platform felt like miles, but I kept my eyes fixed on Nathaniel, drawing strength from his steady gaze. With each step I felt my power rising, responding to his, until the air around me shimmered with barely contained energy. Gasps echoed through the room. People stumbled back, feeling the force of what I was. What I'd always been. I climbed the steps to the platform and took my place beside Nathaniel. His hand found mine immediately, our fingers interlacing. The mate bond blazed between us, visible to everyone as a golden glow that connected us. Impossible, someone breathed. A White Lycan, another whispered. The prophecy, an elderly woman said, her voice carrying. The united bloodlines. The prophecy is coming true. Nathaniel raised his free hand, calling for silence. For those of you questioning Princess Maya's identity, I invite you to challenge it. Come forward. Test her bloodline. Examine the evidence. But I warn you, if you make false accusations, if you attempt to undermine her claim, you will answer to me. No one moved. Now, Nathaniel continued, some of you may be wondering why this announcement matters beyond historical curiosity. Allow me to clarify. Princess Maya was not hidden by accident. She was hidden by design, by traitors who murdered her family and sought to prevent the joining of the 2 White Lycan bloodlines. Those traitors are still among us. The room erupted. Shouts of denial, accusations, chaos. Through it all, I saw Marcus standing near the back, his face pale but his expression defiant. Victoria stood beside him, her beauty twisted with rage as she stared at me. And Luna Catherine, she looked terrified. Silence. Nathaniel's command cracked like thunder. I have evidence, names, testimonies. And over the coming weeks, those responsible will be identified and brought to justice. But tonight, we are here to witness the joining of the 2 most powerful bloodlines in existence. To celebrate the return of a lost princess. And to make it very clear, anyone who threatens her threatens me, and anyone who threatens me threatens every pack in these territories. He turned to face me fully, both of his hands taking mine now. Maya Moonshadow, do you accept your heritage? Do you claim your birthright as princess of the Eastern Territories? My mouth was dry, but I forced the words out. I do. And do you accept me as your mate, knowing that our bond will unite our kingdoms and our people? I looked into his ice-blue eyes and saw everything. The promise of protection, the offer of partnership, the potential for something real between us beyond duty and destiny. I do, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. Nathaniel smiled, and for just a moment the cold king disappeared, replaced by a man who looked at me like I was the most precious thing in his world. Then let it be witnessed, the White Lycan bloodlines are joined. He pulled me close and kissed me, and the room erupted in applause and cheers. But I barely heard it. All I could feel was the mate bond snapping fully into place, permanently tying us together. My wolf sang with joy, and I felt Nathaniel's wolf respond, their connection as deep as ours. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless and dizzy. Nathaniel kept his arm around my waist, supporting me as we turned to face the crowd. Let the celebration begin, he announced. Music started, and the formal atmosphere dissolved into something more festive. People began to approach the platform, wanting to offer congratulations or introduce themselves properly. I shook hands and accepted well wishes, trying to remember names and faces while my head spun. Through it all I watched Marcus. He stood apart from the celebration, his expression dark, speaking urgently with several other alphas. They kept glancing at me and I didn't need to hear their conversation to know they were plotting something. I see them, Nathaniel murmured in my ear. Thomas has people watching. They won't try anything here. But they will try something, I said quietly. Yes. But we'll be ready. He turned me to face him, his hands resting on my waist. Dance with me. I don't know how to dance, I admitted. Not like this. Not formal dancing. Then I'll teach you. He led me down from the platform to the dance floor, where other couples were already swaying to the music. Follow my lead. Trust me. I let him guide me, his hand firm on my lower back as we moved together. At first I was stiff, self-conscious about everyone watching, but gradually I relaxed into his embrace. We moved in perfect synchronization, the mate bond making it easy to anticipate his movements. You're doing perfectly, he said softly, his lips close to my ear. They can't take their eyes off you. That's not always a good thing. It is when you're a queen. He spun me gently, then pulled me back against him. Maya, I need to tell you something. After tonight, after this announcement, there's no going back. You'll have responsibilities, obligations, people depending on you. Your life won't be your own anymore. I know. Do you? Because you still have a choice. If you want to walk away from all of this, the throne, the politics, the danger, I'll support you. We can find another way. I looked up at him surprised. You'd give up uniting the bloodlines? You'd let me walk away from my heritage. I'd give up anything if it meant you were safe and happy. His expression was completely serious. I won't force you into a life you don't want, mate bond or not. My wolf stirred in my chest, warm and certain. We don't want to walk away. This is where we belong. With him. With our people. This is home. I'm not walking away, I said firmly. They took everything from me once. I'm not letting them win again. Pride and something deeper, something that looked a lot like love, flashed across Nathaniel's face. Then we fight. Together. Together, I agreed. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. The music faltered as everyone turned to see what was happening. A woman strode into the ballroom, power radiating from her in waves that made even the alphas take a step back. She was tall, with long silver hair and eyes that glowed with an unnatural purple light. She wore robes of deep violet, and the air around her crackled with magic. Who is that? I whispered. Nathaniel's entire body had gone rigid. That's Morgana Blackwood. Helena's sister. My blood ran cold. The sister of the witch who cursed me, who killed my family, was here. Morgana's glowing eyes swept across the room and locked onto me. A smile curved her lips, but it held no warmth. Your Majesty, she said, her voice carrying despite not seeming to raise it. How wonderful to finally see the lost princess alive and well. My sister would have been so pleased. Your sister was a murderer and a traitor, Nathaniel said coldly. And you were banished from these territories 20 years ago. What are you doing here? I came to offer my congratulations, of course. Morgana glided forward, and the crowd parted before her like she was death itself. And to deliver a message. You see, my sister may have died, but her work wasn't finished. The ritual she began, the power she sought, it's still waiting. Still hungry. Get out, Nathaniel growled, his power flooding the room. But Morgana ignored him, her eyes fixed on me. Tell me, little princess, did they explain what blood magic requires? What was sacrificed to bind your wolf? My family, I said, my voice shaking with rage. She murdered them. Oh, not all of them. Morgana's smile widened. Your parents, yes. The guards, the courtiers. But not your brother. The world tilted. What? Your twin brother, Alexander. He survived that night just like you did. Helena took him too, you see. Needed his blood for the second phase of the ritual. Morgana tilted her head. I wonder where he is now. I wonder if he even knows his sister is alive. You're lying, I said, but my voice cracked. Am I? Morgana raised one hand and purple magic swirled in her palm. Before anyone could react, she threw it at me. The magic hit me like a physical blow, and suddenly images flooded my mind. A baby boy with my eyes, A child being raised in darkness, a young man with white hair and power that rivaled my own. I gasped, falling to my knees. Nathaniel caught me, his arms wrapping around me protectively. "Enough," he roared. Guards rushed forward, but Morgana simply laughed and vanished in a swirl of purple smoke. The ballroom erupted into chaos. People shouting, moving, the celebration forgotten in the wake of the witch's appearance. But I barely noticed any of it. I had a brother. Twin. And he was out there somewhere, alive, probably thinking he was alone in the world just like I had been. "Why, Nathaniel's voice broke through my shock. "Look at me. Are you hurt?" I shook my head, but tears streamed down my face. "I have a brother." We don't know if she was telling the truth. She was. I looked up at him. I felt it. When her magic touched me, I felt him. The other half of my soul. "He's real, Nathaniel. He's alive." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. He helped me to my feet, then addressed the room in a voice that brooked no argument. "Everyone out. The celebration is over. Return to your packs and territories. We'll be in contact." No one argued. Within minutes, the ballroom was empty except for Nathaniel, Thomas, Grace, Silas, and me. "This changes things," Thomas said quietly. "Everything changes," Nathaniel agreed. He looked at Silas. "Can you track him? If he's really alive, can you find him? If he shares Maya's bloodline, if he's a White Lycan?" Silas nodded slowly. "Yes. But your Majesty, if Morgana knows about him, if she's been watching him, then he's in danger." I pulled away from Nathaniel, pacing across the empty dance floor. My mind raced. She said Helena needed his blood for the second phase. What second phase? What was she trying to do? "I don't know," Silas admitted. "But blood magic rituals are complex. If the first phase was binding your wolf, preventing the bloodlines from uniting, then the second phase." He paled. "Oh no." "What?" Nathaniel demanded. "The second phase would be using the bound power to fuel something else. Something bigger." Silas looked at me with horror in his ancient eyes. "Your Highness, if your brother was also bound, if his wolf was also suppressed, then somewhere there are 2 White Lycans worth of power just waiting to be claimed. That much power could destroy the world," a new voice said from the doorway. We all spun to see Marcus standing there, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. "Or reshape it." "Guards." Nathaniel barked. "Wait." Marcus held up his hands. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to confess." The silence that followed Marcus's words was deafening. Every muscle in my body tensed, my wolf rising to the surface, ready to attack the man who had made my life a living hell for 20 years. "Talk fast," Nathaniel said, his voice deadly calm. "And if I sense even a hint of deception, you won't leave this room alive." Marcus looked around at all of us, then his gaze settled on me. For the first time I saw something in his eyes that might have been regret. "I need her to hear this. She deserves to know the truth." "I deserve to know why you tortured me for 2 decades, I said, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. "I deserve to know why you locked a child in a basement and let your daughter torment her. I deserve to know why you helped murder my family." "I didn't help murder them." Marcus's voice cracked. "I tried to stop it. God help me, I tried." "Explain," Nathaniel commanded. "Now." Marcus's shoulders slumped, and suddenly he looked every one of his 52 years. 23 years ago I was a different man. Ambitious, hungry for power, angry that I'd never rise higher than a mid-level alpha. When Helena Blackwood approached me with promises of territory and influence, I listened. I shouldn't have, but I did. He moved further into the room and I noticed his hands were shaking. "She said the White Lycan bloodlines had too much power. That they were holding the rest of us down, preventing worthy wolves from achieving greatness. She said all we had to do was level the playing field. Remove the moonshadows from power, prevent any future alliance." I thought. He laughed bitterly. "I thought it would be political maneuvering. Forcing them to abdicate, maybe. I never imagined she meant murder." "But you went along with it," I said coldly. "You were at the celebration. You survived when everyone else died." "Because I wasn't supposed to be there." Marcus's voice rose. "I was invited as a minor alpha, yes, but I was going to refuse. Then Helena told me I had to attend, had to be a witness. She said if I didn't show up, she'd know I'd betrayed the cause. I thought maybe I could warn someone. But by the time I understood what was really happening, it was too late. You could have stopped it, Grace said, her voice hard. You could have raised the alarm, fought back, done something. I tried. Marcus's eyes glistened with unshed tears. When I realized what the poisoned food would do, I grabbed King Alexander, tried to warn him. But the wolfsbane was already in his system. He couldn't shift, couldn't fight. The last thing he said to me was, "Save my children." Not himself, not his mate, his children. Marcus looked at me directly. I found you and your brother in the nursery. The attackers were coming and I knew I couldn't save you both. I grabbed you because you were closest to the door and I ran. I hid you in my car, covered you with blankets and went back for your brother. But by the time I returned, Helena was already there. He had him. And she had Catherine. What does my mother have to do with this? The voice came from the doorway, Victoria, pale and shaking, with Luna Catherine behind her. Marcus closed his eyes. Catherine was supposed to be my alibi. Helena said if I brought my mate and daughter to the celebration, no one would suspect me of being involved. So I did. I brought them both, never telling Catherine what was about to happen. And when the attack started, Helena took her and Victoria hostage. Catherine spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. She said if Marcus didn't cooperate, she'd kill us both. She had a knife to Victoria's throat. Victoria was only 2 years old. The pieces started falling into place, but I couldn't let sympathy cloud my judgment. So you traded my family for yours? Yes. Marcus's admission was stark. Helena gave me a choice: take the Moonshadow Princess and raise her as my own, keep her suppressed and hidden, or watch my wife and daughter die. I chose to save them. God forgive me, I chose them. What about my brother? I demanded. What happened to Alexander? I don't know. Marcus shook his head. Helena took him. She said she had plans for him, needed him for the ritual. But she never told me where he was taken or what she did to him. I swear I've wondered about him every day for 23 years. Nathaniel's power pressed down on Marcus like a physical weight. You expect us to believe you were an unwilling participant? That you kept Maya in a basement, let her be abused and starved, all because you were being blackmailed? No. Marcus straightened his spine. The blackmail ended when Helena died 3 years later. After that, I kept Maya hidden because I was a coward. Because I was afraid that if the truth came out, I'd be executed for my part in the massacre. I convinced myself I was protecting her, that she was safer staying unknown. But really, I was just protecting myself. He turned to me and I saw tears streaming down his face. Maya, I know I can never make this right. I know sorry means nothing compared to what I put you through. But you need to know your parents loved you. Both of you. King Alexander's last words were about saving his children. And your mother. His voice broke. Queen Sarah fought like a demon to get to the nursery. She killed 3 attackers before the wolfsbane took her down. She was trying to reach you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent my whole life thinking my parents hadn't wanted me, that maybe there was some reason I'd been abandoned. But they died trying to save me. Why are you telling us this now? Thomas asked, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. Why confess after all these years? Because Morgana Blackwood is here. Marcus looked at Nathaniel. And because if she's revealed herself, it means the ritual is almost complete. Whatever Helena started, Morgana intends to finish. And I won't, let another innocent person suffer because of my cowardice. What do you know about the ritual? Silas demanded. Not much. But I know it requires both royal twins alive at the time of casting. I know it needs their suppressed power to fuel it. And I know, Marcus hesitated. Helena had journals. Books full of dark magic and ritual instructions. When she was executed, they were supposed to be destroyed. But Morgana took them. She's had them all this time. Where? Nathaniel's voice was sharp. Where would she perform this ritual? The Moonshadow Palace. Or what's left of it? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed us a location on a map. The ruins still stand in the Eastern Territories. Helena said the massacre created a concentration of death energy there, made it a perfect conduit for blood magic. If Morgana is going to complete the ritual, that's where she'll do it. I looked at Nathaniel. We have to go there. If my brother is alive, if he's in danger. It's a trap, Thomas interrupted. It has to be. Morgana shows up here, reveals the brother's existence, then Marcus conveniently appears to tell us exactly where to go? They're trying to lure you out. Of course it's a trap, I said. But that doesn't change the fact that my brother needs help. I'm not leaving him to suffer whatever fate Helena planned for him. Neither am I, Nathaniel said firmly. He looked at Marcus. You're coming with us. If this is a trap, you'll be the first one to die. If you're telling the truth, you're going to help us end this. Marcus nodded. I understand. Your Majesty, Catherine spoke up, her voice trembling. Victoria and I knew nothing about the ritual or Morgana's plans. We just knew that Maya was supposed to stay hidden. Please, I know we treated her horribly, but... Save it, I interrupted. I looked at Victoria, who was crying silently, mascara running down her face. You made my life hell. You took every opportunity to remind me I was worthless. And you both knew, that I wasn't really Wolfless. You knew there was something more going on. I didn't know. Victoria protested. I was jealous. You were always so kind, so good, even when we treated you like dirt. And I hated you for it. I hated that you were better than me without even trying. Victoria, Catherine said sharply. No, Mom. She deserves the truth. Victoria looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I knew something was different about you. Sometimes I'd catch you doing things, hearing conversations you shouldn't hear, healing faster than you should. And it scared me because if you weren't really worthless, if there was something special about you, then what did that make me? So I pushed harder, made your life worse, tried to break you. And I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I wanted to hate her. Wanted to hold on to the rage and hurt she'd caused. But looking at her now, broken and crying and facing the truth of what she'd done, I just felt tired. I don't forgive you, I said quietly. Maybe someday I will, but not today. Today I have to focus on saving my brother and stopping whatever Morgana has planned. After that, I shook my head. After that we'll see. Nathaniel's hand found mine, squeezing gently. Thomas, get a team together. Our best fighters plus Silas and Grace. We leave within the hour. I'm coming too, I said. Why, don't. I turned to face him fully. He's my brother. My twin. I've spent 23 years alone, thinking I had no family. I'm not going to sit here safely while he's in danger. You're exactly what Morgana wants, Nathaniel argued. If she gets her hands on both of you, then she'll have to go through you first. I pulled him closer, my forehead resting against his. I know you want to protect me. I know this is dangerous. But I'm not the scared girl from the basement anymore. I'm a White Lycan princess and I'm done hiding. Pride and frustration warred on Nathaniel's face. Finally he sighed. You're going to be a very difficult queen to protect. Good thing you're up for the challenge. He kissed me then, hard and fierce and full of promise. When we broke apart, his eyes had shifted to that midnight blue that meant his wolf was close to the surface. If anything happens to you, he said quietly, I will burn the world down. Then make sure nothing happens to either of us. The drive to the Moonshadow Palace ruins took 3 hours. We traveled in a convoy of 6 vehicles, carrying 20 of Nathaniel's best warriors plus our core group. Marcus rode in our SUV, silent and tense, while Thomas drove and Grace sat beside him going over protective spells with Silas. I watched the landscape change through the window, trying to prepare myself for what we might find. My wolf paced restlessly inside me, sensing we were getting closer to something important. Brother, she whispered. We will find him. We will save him. Tell me about the palace, I said to Marcus. What do you remember? He was quiet for a moment. It was beautiful. Not as large as Nathaniel's estate, but older. More elegant. The architecture was all curves and flowing lines, like it had grown naturally from the earth rather than being built. He stared out the window. Your mother loved gardens. She had roses everywhere, white ones like your wolf. The whole palace smelled like them. And now it's ruins. After the massacre, no one wanted to rebuild there. Too many ghosts, too much tragedy. The council declared it a memorial site, off limits to everyone. He glanced at Nathaniel. Which means if Morgana is there, she's been squatting illegally for years. That's the least of her crimes, Nathaniel muttered. As we drove deeper into the Eastern Territories, I felt something shift in the air. A pull similar to the mate bond but different. More like an echo or a reflection. Do you feel that? I asked Nathaniel. He nodded. Your brother. You're sensing him through your twin bond. We're getting close. The pull grew stronger with every mile until my chest ached with it. My wolf whined, desperate to reach the other half of our family. Finally, the palace came into view. Even in ruins, it was breathtaking. White stone walls still stood in places covered in vines and moss. Broken columns reached toward the sky like skeletal fingers. And everywhere, white roses grew wild, their blooms glowing faintly in the late afternoon sun. It's beautiful, Grace breathed. It's cursed, Silas corrected. Can't you feel the death magic? This place is soaked in it. He was right. Now that we were closer, I could feel the wrongness that permeated every stone. This was a place where terrible things had happened, where blood had been spilled and lives had been stolen. We parked the vehicles in what had once been a courtyard and climbed out carefully. Nathaniel's warriors fanned out, securing the perimeter while the rest of us approached the main entrance. A massive archway that still bore scorch marks from the fire. The throne room is through here, Marcus said, leading the way. If she's performing a ritual, that's where she'd do it. It was the heart of the palace's power. We moved through the ruins cautiously, weapons drawn, every sense on high alert. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of our footsteps on broken stone and the occasional call of a bird from somewhere above. And then we heard it, chanting in that same ancient language Silas had used during my curse breaking. But this voice was female, powerful, and full of dark intent. We rounded a corner and stopped dead. The throne room had been cleared of debris and rebuilt into a ritual space. Candles burned in a massive circle, their flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Runes had been painted everywhere in what I knew was blood. And in the center of it all stood Morgana Blackwood, her arms raised, purple magic swirling around her like a storm. But what made my heart stop was the figure bound to an altar in front of her. A young man with white hair and my eyes, unconscious but alive, with runes carved into his exposed chest still bleeding. Alexander, I breathed. Morgana's eyes snapped open and she smiled. Right on time, princess. I was beginning to worry you wouldn't show. Let him go, I demanded, my wolf surging forward, ready to shift. Let him go. Morgana laughed. My dear, we've only just begun. You see, Helena's vision was incomplete. She wanted to bind your power, use it to create chaos and destruction. But I saw the potential for so much more. Her eyes gleamed with madness. Why destroy power when you can steal it? Why waste two White Lycan bloodlines when you can merge them into one vessel? You want to take their power, Silas said, horror dawning on his face. You want to make yourself a White Lycan. Not just any White Lycan. The White Lycan. With the combined power of both royal twins, I'll be unstoppable. I'll reshape the supernatural world in my image. Morgana's magic intensified. And the best part? The ritual requires willing participation from both twins. All I need is for Maya to step into the circle and try to save her brother. The moment she touches him, the transfer begins. Don't, Nathaniel said urgently, grabbing my arm. It's exactly what she wants. But I was already pulling away, already moving forward. Because I could feel Alexander's pain through our twin bond. Could feel him fighting to wake up, trying to warn me, desperate and afraid. Maya, no. Nathaniel lunged for me, but Morgana threw up a barrier of magic that knocked him backward. Sorry, Your Majesty, but this is between family. He grinned at me. Come on, princess. Save your brother. Unless you're too much of a coward. I looked at Alexander. My twin, the brother I never knew I had, the other half of my soul, and I knew there was no choice. I couldn't let him die. Couldn't let him suffer because of me. Sister, no, my wolf pleaded. It's a trap. I know, I replied. But he's ours. And we protect what's ours. I stepped into the circle. The moment my foot crossed the line of candles, magic erupted around me. Chains of purple energy wrapped around my wrists and ankles, yanking me toward the altar. I fought against them, but they were too strong, pulling me inexorably forward. Paya! Nathaniel's roar shook the ruins, but he couldn't break through Morgana's barrier. My hand touched Alexander's chest, and the world exploded into pain and power. The ritual activated, and I felt Morgana's magic begin to drain us both. My wolf screamed, Alexander's wolf. I could feel him now, trapped like mine had been, roared in fury. Our power flowed out of us like blood from a wound, streaming toward Morgana, who stood with her arms outstretched and her head thrown back in ecstasy. No, I thought desperately. This can't be how it ends. And then, through the pain, I felt it, Alexander's consciousness reaching for mine. Our twin bond flaring to life properly for the first time. Sister? Brother? She's stealing from us both, but she doesn't understand. We're not two separate powers. We're one split into two bodies. What do you mean? I mean that if we combine our strength, if we fight together, we can reverse the flow. We can take her power instead. It was insane. Reckless. Probably impossible. But it was also our only chance. Do it, I said. Our wolves merged consciousness and suddenly I understood. We weren't just twins. We were two halves of the same soul, the same power, the same ancient magic. Helena had tried to separate us, to keep us apart because together, we were something unprecedented. We were the first complete White Lycan born in 1,000 years. As one, we pushed back against Morgana's magic. She felt it immediately, her eyes flying open in shock. What are you doing? She shrieked. That's not possible. But it was happening. The flow of power reversed, and now Morgana's magic was being pulled into us. She screamed, trying to break the connection, but it was too late. The ritual she'd designed to steal from us became the channel through which her own power drained away. No. No. Morgana's body convulsed as we drained her magic, her life force, everything that made her a witch. The purple glow faded from her eyes, her silver hair turned gray, and she collapsed to the ground, aged and powerless. The chains around us shattered. The barrier holding Nathaniel back dissolved. And Alexander and I stood together for the first time in 23 years. Our hands still joined, power crackling around us like lightning. Alexander's eyes opened, the same gray color as mine, and he smiled weakly. Hey, sister. Hey, brother. Tears streamed down my face. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed. I caught him, lowering him gently to the ground as Nathaniel and the others rushed forward. Is he? I couldn't finish the question. Grace knelt beside us, her hands glowing with healing magic as she examined Alexander. He's alive. Weak, drained, but alive. The runes carved into him will scar, but they'll heal. He just needs rest. I sagged with relief, and Nathaniel's arms came around me, holding me up. You did it, he murmured. You saved him. We saved each other, I corrected, looking down at my unconscious twin. We're supposed to be together. That's why they worked so hard to keep us apart. Silas approached Morgana's crumpled form. She was still alive but barely, her power completely gone. What should we do with her? Take her to the council, Nathaniel said coldly. Let them decide her fate, along with everyone else who was involved in the conspiracy. He looked at Marcus, who stood at the edge of the room, his face pale. Starting with you. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand. I'm ready to face justice for what I've done. 3 days later, I stood in front of the Council of Supernatural Leaders, my brother beside me for the first time in public, with Nathaniel's hand clasped in mine. The council chamber was full. Every alpha, every elder, every influential voice in North American shifter politics. They'd come to witness the trial of those involved in the Moonshadow massacre and to see the lost twins finally reunited. Alexander looked so much like me it was uncanny. Same build, same eyes, same white hair that marked us as royalty. But where I'd learned to be invisible and careful, he'd been raised in isolation and trained as a weapon. Morgana had kept him prisoner for 20 years, attempting to break his will so he'd serve her willingly. She'd failed, but the scars, physical and emotional, would take time to heal. Still, when he smiled at me, I saw hope in his eyes. We'd both survived. We were both free. And we had each other now. The verdict came swiftly. Marcus Bennett was stripped of his alpha title and sentenced to exile for his part in the conspiracy, though the council acknowledged his eventual cooperation. Catherine and Victoria were spared punishment as they'd been victims of blackmail. Morgana Blackwood was sentenced to life imprisonment in a magical containment facility, her powers permanently bound. And there were others. Council members who had helped seal records, alphas who had taken bribes to stay silent, witches who had assisted Helena. One by one they were exposed and sentenced. The conspiracy that had stolen my family and my childhood was finally being dismantled. When it was over, Nathaniel stood before the council and made a declaration that shocked everyone. The Eastern Territories, which have remained unclaimed since the Moonshadow massacre, hereby return to their rightful heir. Princess Maya Moonshadow is recognized as the ruling monarch of her family's lands, with all rights and privileges that entails. Additionally, as my mate and future queen of the Northern Territories, our kingdoms will be united through our bond, not as one absorbing the other but as equal partners in leadership. He turned to me, his eyes warm. If you'll have me, that is. I looked around the chamber, at the faces of those who had once thought me worthless, who had dismissed me as broken and powerless. They stared back with respect, with awe, some with fear. But mostly I looked at my brother, who squeezed my other hand encouragingly. At Grace, who'd become like a mother to me. At Thomas, who'd proven himself a loyal friend. At Silas, who'd freed me from my curse. And at Nathaniel, the mate who'd believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Yes, I said clearly. I'll have you. I'll be your queen, your partner, your mate. And together we'll build something better than what came before. The chamber erupted in applause, and Nathaniel pulled me into his arms, kissing me in front of everyone with a passion that left no doubt about the depth of our bond. When we finally broke apart, Alexander cleared his throat. So, does this mean I'm a prince? Because I really don't know how to do that. I laughed, hugging my brother tight. Neither do I. But we'll figure it out together. We have time now. All the time in the world. And for the first time in my life, I truly believed it. The girl who'd been mocked for being wolfless had become a White Lycan princess. The prisoner who'd lived in a basement now ruled a kingdom. The lost twin had found her other half. My story didn't end with the breaking of a curse or the defeat of a villain. It was only beginning. And whatever came next, whatever challenges or triumphs or adventures waited, I would face them with my brother by my side, my mate at my back, and a pack who had become my family. I was Maya Moonshadow, Queen of the Eastern Territories and future Lycan Queen of the North. And I was finally, truly, completely free. 6 months later. The coronation was held at the rebuilt Moonshadow Palace, which had been restored to its former glory through a combination of magic, hard work, and the generous donations of packs throughout the territories. The white roses my mother had loved so much still grew everywhere, but now they were tended by gardeners who understood their significance. I stood in front of a mirror in what had been my mother's chambers, wearing a gown of white and silver that seemed to capture moonlight in its threads. A crown of platinum and diamonds, recovered from the ruins and magically restored, rested on my head. It had belonged to my mother and before her to generations of Moonshadow queens. You look just like her, Alexander said from the doorway. He wore formal attire befitting a prince, though he still looked slightly uncomfortable in it. We'd spent the last 6 months getting to know each other, healing together, learning how to be siblings. He was funny and kind and fiercely protective, and I loved him more than I'd ever thought possible. Did you know her? I asked. Before the massacre? Barely. I was 3, same as you. But I remember. He paused, his eyes distant. I remember her singing. The same song you hum sometimes when you're working. I think we both remember more than we realize. A warm hand settled on my shoulder, Nathaniel looking devastating in his formal royal attire. It's time, he said gently. Together the 3 of us walked through the palace corridors toward the throne room. It was packed with guests, alphas and lunas, council members, dignitaries from across North America and beyond. They'd all come to witness the rebirth of the Moonshadow throne. But more importantly, they'd come to witness the formal joining of the 2 White Lycan kingdoms. After today, Nathaniel and I would rule together as King and Queen of the United Territories, with Alexander serving as Crown Prince and heir. We'd changed so much in 6 months. The investigation into the conspiracy had revealed even more traitors, more wolves who'd been complicit in my family's murder. Justice had been served, but more than that, we'd reformed the entire power structure. No longer would a handful of alphas hold all the control. Now Omegas had voices in government. Women led packs. Young wolves were trained not just to fight but to think, to lead, to change. It was slow work and there was resistance. But with Nathaniel's strength and my determination, we were building something new. Something better. As I took my place on the throne beside Nathaniel, with Alexander standing proudly to my right, I looked out at the sea of faces and felt a surge of gratitude and hope. Grace smiled at me from the front row, tears in her eyes. Thomas stood at attention, ever the loyal beta. Silas watched with his ancient eyes full of pride. Even Marcus was there, standing in the back, having been allowed to attend on condition of good behavior. He looked older now and sad, but when our eyes met he nodded once. Acknowledgement, maybe even respect. The ceremony was beautiful. Traditional words were spoken, oaths were taken, and when Nathaniel kissed me to seal our union, the entire room erupted in celebration. But the moment that mattered most came later, after the formalities, when the three of us, Nathaniel, Alexander, and I, stood on a balcony overlooking the gardens, watching our people celebrate below. Do you think they would be proud? I asked quietly, thinking of my parents. If they could see us now? I think they'd be amazed, Alexander said. Their babies all grown up and running kingdoms. Plural. Nathaniel wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me close. I think they'd be proud that you survived. That you fought back. That you refused to let the people who hurt you define who you became. I leaned into him, feeling the mate bond hum with contentment. My wolf purred, happy and whole and home. What happens now? Alexander asked. I smiled. Now we live. We lead. We love. We build the kind of world our parents dreamed of. That's it. He raised an eyebrow. No dramatic battles? No evil villains plotting revenge. I'm sure those will come, I said wryly. But for today, for this moment, we get to just be happy. And I was happy in a way I'd never imagined possible. The girl who'd been mocked by her sister for being wolfless had transformed into a White Lycan Queen. The lost princess had reclaimed her throne. The twins separated at birth had found her other half. My story wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, messy, painful, and beautiful. But it was mine. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it, because every hardship, every tear, every lonely night in that basement had led me here. To this palace. To this throne. To this family. To home. What part of Maya's journey resonated with you the most? Was it when she first transformed into her White Lycan form? The emotional moment when she stood up to Victoria before leaving Silver Creek? Or perhaps the revelation about her twin brother Alexander? I'd love to hear what scene gave you chills or made you emotional. Drop a comment below. And here's something to think about. If you were in Maya's position, do you think you could have forgiven Marcus for what he did, even knowing he was blackmailed? Or was Alexander right to be protective and cautious? What would you have done differently? If you enjoyed this story of transformation, redemption, and finding your true power, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your subscription means the world to me. This channel is still young and growing, and every single subscriber helps me continue creating stories that I hope touch your heart and keep you on the edge of your seat. Turn on those notifications so you never miss the next incredible tale. Thank you so much for joining Maya on this journey from wolfless outcast to powerful queen. I'll see you in the next story, where we'll dive into another world of magic, romance, and unforgettable characters. Until then, stay strong, stay brave, and remember, you're never as powerless as others might make you believe.